All right. So the first question is, why do you want to be mayor?
Thank you, Debbie. Just before we start, I need to tell you, in the early 70s, I came here to referee a hockey game. And what I noticed in Nanaimo were a lot of pubs and a lot of gas stations and a lot of rednecks. And I said, who the hell would ever want to live here? Well, a few years later, I chose Lantzville to live. And here I am in a pub talking about an election. So why am I running for mayor? It's time and I'm ready. I've been in the community for many years in a number of roles, including a trustee and a chair for the Improvement District, a councillor, a firefighter, service club member, Legion member, and various other committees throughout the community. Together we built the fire hall, the new district office, Rotary Park. We installed some equipment in the schools and playgrounds. I feel I know Lantzville fairly well, and I know its unique characteristics. I'm also running to keep our taxes low, and on average, for those that don't know, the taxes here in Lantzville are about a third less than Nanaimo, and we'd like to keep it that way. For those who attend our council meetings, I know you know that I prefer to contract out rather than hire staff. And I'll give you for an example. We purchased tobacco, didn't support it. I just feel that we should contract those kinds of things out. I would like to bring municipal salaries more in line with the private sector. Not an easy thing to do, but we're going to try. I think we should be working more with different levels of government, including our First Nations folks next to us. I'd like to use new technology to reduce some costs, and I'd like to raise some revenues through sponsorship activities. I would also like to change it up. How am I doing for time, Deb?
About 30 seconds. Okay,
thank you. I would also like to change it up a little by involving our staff and council more, as well as our residences. My style is to be inclusive. The first step would be a strategic planning session. The next step would be a public information meeting, followed by staff and council meeting to clearly understand what our goals are.
Thank you, Joe. So the next one is Jack. Same question for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I got the call from Mike Sargent, and the first time I met Mike was at the City Hall complaining about his road, so I was a little apprehensive about coming here. I guess I didn't take his complaint a little further, but frankly, why am I running? I've been fortunate to have been your mayor for the last 3 years, and with family support and the community support, I would like to continue to provide the kind of inclusive leadership that this community expects of me. And it's a small community, so I think I can contribute in a tangible way. During my term, we were able to make progress on just about every front, according to my 2011 election platform. It was a collaborative effort. I didn't do this alone. It was an effort with council and staff. And we published our business plan very shortly after I was elected. And we continued to control spending in line with inflation and negotiated contracts. And taxes only increased modestly over the last 3 years. We resolved our urban agricultural issue. And it took the community out of the national and international spotlight. I think that was a very positive step forward. We strengthened bylaw enforcement while at the same time we reduced our legal costs associated with bylaw enforcement by passing a ticketing bylaw. We could not issue a ticket before. We reduced council compensation by $35,000 over the 3-year term. We set up a village core committee, village core improvement committee, and I think the results with our water deal will be positive. We approved the underwriter survey to confirm the requirement to purchase a new fire truck and to maintain our insurance rating. We had the first council-to-council meeting between the First Nations and the Lantzville Council. I will attempt to continue to build on this relationship. I chaired the first inter-council meeting between our larger neighbor Nanaimo and Lantzville. We discussed and were able to convince the majority of the Nanaimo Council that it would be in their mutual interest to honor a memorandum of understanding and to conclude a water deal. I'm going to pass it 2 minutes, or I'll just conclude then. When I'm not speaking, doesn't count, I think. So because of the remaining community and council goals, such as encouraging seniors housing, legalizing of secondary suites, village core improvement, I would like to be part of this progress, and that's the reason why my name is again on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. With regards to myself running for mayor, there's actually two parts to it. I was your mayor for 8 years and leading our community to the establishment of the municipality, as well as the completion of a number of infrastructure projects and plans such as the OCP, 2 phases of sewer and a water reservoir. To be honest, this was the most fulfilling portion of my life, both professionally and personally. I enjoyed the task of working to make Lantzville residents' lives better, and I'm running to continue to make Lantzville lives better. But in addition, I believe that Lantzville needs to return to a common sense approach of taking care of the basics and putting existing residents first. If you look across at the Village Hall today, there's lights hanging down, and with regards to the lights on the outside of the building, do you know that they've been on 24/7 for almost 2 years? If you can't take care of the small challenges, how can you address the big ones? According to the OCP, Lantzville is based on a small town feel, small local government, and changes only if it's for the benefit of existing residents. This council intends to relax conditions on the foothill developers at the expense of the existing residents. Residents should come first. We have a water agreement that excludes hundreds of residents who also need potable water. This council chose to not even consult with those residents. The developers get access to water, yet the residents don't. The 2015 financial plan includes a 2% increase in taxes. However, at the same time, it includes a $100,000 deficit. When economic development and Port Theatre are added because of the water agreement, the deficit increases to $150,000. This represents a 12% increase in taxes and spending. When a single council member raised the tax increase issue at a meeting, an individual on council accused them of fear-mongering. It wasn't fear-mongering, that was fact. We need to get back to the values that the community was created under. We need to get back to a common sense approach to the basics, and I'm running to do that. Thank you.
So Jack, you're up for the second question. So the second question is, what qualifications do you bring to being mayor?
Thank you. I have 35 years experience in project management and manage large numbers of employees in Canada and abroad. I'm a little rough on the edges, and that's a result of providing leadership to large staff under very demanding conditions. And I retired as Director of Administrative Methods in Ontario. My skills to deal with strong personalities, and there are lots of them, and different visions and priority are well anchored and undoubtedly have contributed to maintaining good relationships with the community and staff. My ability to interact with different people with different cultural background was reinforced when the RDN appointed me as the regional representative to the First Nations negotiations, which includes our neighbor Snawaas. My approach is to encourage participation, inspire a commitment towards a common goal. I share my knowledge willingly and I provide guidance to staff, but I do not get involved in running City Hall on a day-to-day basis. As a result, through effective organization and planning and guidance, and effective use of human, financial, and equipment resources, we have met all our financial commitments over the last 3 years. I'm receptive to new ideas. I will readily admit to mistake and adjust accordingly. I listen effectively and get clarifications to questions. I'm open-minded in an attempt to break down barriers and bypass roadblocks through serious dialogue. Within the scope of the mayor's responsibility, one vote, I make decisions based on the best available information. I consider short and long-term implications, and in short, I do my homework and I strive to move forward. I encourage a type of management that results in different opinions being dealt with without offense and without conflict. Finally, I do not have a committee for re-elections. I'm completely independent, as my voting record shows. I have 2 children and their partners, as well as 4 grandchildren living in Lantzville, and their interests are your interests. And so I will maintain a small community atmosphere, independence, and reasonable taxes and value for money. Thank you.
Colin, let's go to you.
Thank you. The qualities that I bring to the mayor's position include professional judgment. The first part of this is knowledge. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm a university professor at Vancouver Island University. I teach in both the undergraduate business program as well as the master's in business program. And for 23 years in the village, I've been an advisor to individuals and small businesses. Second part is experience. I'm a facilitator and lecturer for the chartered accountants and chartered professional accountants in the 4 western provinces. But most importantly, I was mayor for 8 years and led council in the community through the establishment of the municipality and significant projects, again, including the OCP, sewer, water reservoirs, and trails. Third item is integrity. I have a public and professional track record of keeping my promises. If I promise to consult with the residents before a decision is made, that's exactly what I'll do. I'm goal-focused, and that's one of the reasons why council accomplished so much in those first 8 years. When I set my mind to achieving a goal, I work hard to accomplish the goal, and I'll continue to do this. As your mayor, I recognize it's not just a facilitator or a public relations role, but a leadership role. And the key aspect of that leadership is the ability to break down complex issues and identify alternatives and implications of decisions and actions. This will help council to achieve what the community needs. I believe I have the qualities required to be your mayor.
All right. Myself, I've got 20 years of being a small business owner in a number of businesses. I've got 15 years on a corporate side in a senior management position working for some newspapers in Vancouver. What qualities do you bring to the position besides those? Most candidates use the buzzwords of leadership, vision, transparency, accountability, etc. And they're important, but for me, and I've done this my whole time on council, is to listen, be prepared, and learn. I have an open mind, I do the research, and I listen. I see the role of a mayor as a facilitator. As a council, we must work together with staff and our residents to pinpoint our challenges, develop positive, innovative solutions to achieve our goals in the best interests of our community. I have sat on various boards for over 40 years, striving to keep its dues and fees reflective of our economic times. I know the Robert's Rules of Order. I know how important it is to get everyone talking positively, and I subscribe to George Cuff's Rules of Conduct, and that's really important. I'll go into that in more detail later. Politicians must serve everybody, and diversity is an important asset. I don't hide anything. You will always get a direct and honest answer from me. I believe I'm an effective manager, pragmatic, efficient, realistic, and results-driven. Thank you.
All right, so the third and final question before we can take your questions from the floor. What will be your first priority as mayor if you're elected? So the first person in.
Taxes are certainly always a priority. They're discussed each year, and the ability for residents to pay is continually eroding. Because of the decisions of this council, with the current financial plan, Lantzville residents are potentially facing a tax and spending increase of 12% in 2015. Both of my opponents promised a reduction in administrative spending and less government, yet administrative wages have increased 30% in 3 years. This needs to be addressed in short order with a complete review of all proposed spending to separate necessary from unnecessary spending, with a view to cutting expenses without cutting the service delivery to the residents. This is commonly called either a core review or zero-based budgeting. However, council can work on more than one item at a time, so simultaneously I would work to address the shortcomings of the Nanaimo water agreement which includes addressing the wording that eliminates hundreds of residents from receiving potable water. I also intend to introduce a policy where council is required to release in-camera minutes and reports on a regular basis. Thank you.
I think so. Thanks, Debbie. What will be my first priority? Water. The single biggest issue is water, and it's been that way for over 40 years. Each strategic planning session of council has identified its importance as the #1 priority. The historic water deal with Nanaimo will give our residents a safe, clean, continuous supply of water for many years to come. This agreement will also give Lantzville the ability to control its development in the way its residents want. Senior housing, always important. Village core revitalization, overdue, and I really love what Qualicum Beach has done. Economic development, interesting possibilities, and a road trail transportation system it needs. Lantzville has a unique quality of life with opportunities that residents of a rural community enjoy. We need to protect this, and access to a good water source will keep it that way. My first priority would be to do a strategic planning session with council, meet with staff, and then bring that information to the residents for their input. In summary, this is an exciting time with so many options: water, village core revitalization, parks and rec, and stress rec might need to be tweaked a little bit, and with strong leadership, fiscal vision, and fiscal responsibility, we'll meet those challenges to make Lantzville a better community. So in the next 4 years, I'll commit to work with you and for you in our community. Thank you.
As a cornerstone, and after some 10 years of this being a major goal of every council, we resolved the water issue. We understood Nanaimo's political and water supply limitations, and as a result we progressed. This agreement was not an all or nothing agreement. It was not a development-driven agreement. It put this community in the driver's seat to demand the amenities in exchange for water for future development. We own the water, not the developer. Within a framework of infrastructure funding limitation, it is my objective to continue to move forward and provide water to all residents in this community, especially where water supply is a hardship condition. In spite of being called a do-nothing council and a mistake on part of the electorate to be elected in 2011, I think I can prove that this council was the right decision for this community. All the naysayers were wrong. I proudly call this constructive and well-performing council that met many of its objectives, and I intend to continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you for answering all those questions. So now we're going to throw it open to the floor to ask questions to the candidates. But we like to do it in a format that sort of keeps it in some sort of order. So if you have a question, if you could put up your hand, and when called upon, stand up and say who you would like to direct your question to, which candidate, and then ask your question. And the other two candidates have the opportunity to answer that question as well after the candidate that you've directed the question to. So, does anybody have any questions?
Somebody's got to be first.
No, somebody's got to have a question.
Well, I guess we're done.
Would you like to write your questions down on a card and have them presented to your candidate? Would you like to write it or ask it?
Ask it.
Oh, would you like to stand up and tell us who you are?
Yes, my name is Dave Elstrom, resident of Lower Lantzville. I have a question for Colin Haim. It's to do with the water issue. I've done some back-of-the-envelope work in terms of, I'm not a resident of the Winds, but when I read the agreement, it looked like the Winds was one area that was not isolated in terms of they will get water. And I was curious because I did some back-of-the-envelope economics. And if we take, because I noticed in the community update, there was a mention of what's called the local area service vote. I wasn't familiar with that, but I did. Now I understand it. I understand that community may have to have a local area service vote. So I looked at the cost of running a main line over there, and with a bit of an engineering background that I have, and the distribution looks like that could be $2.25 to $2.5 million. And if you add in the cost of the $5,912 for a single tie-in, and maybe another $4,000 or $5,000 for individuals to tie into the system, the people in Winds are going to have to pay $31,000 plus. My question then is, if this goes to a vote and it votes no, which it could very well happen, I'm not sure, I don't know any people in the Winds, but if they vote no, then who are the main benefactors of this particular water agreement, since they were the only area that was singled out for water?
Okay, with regards to the Winds area, I've spent some time door knocking up there in the last couple months, visiting a bunch of the residents up there. There are a number of people with very good wells. They've got a lot in the way of quantity, and it's of good quality. Those people, a number of those people, would not be willing to spend $30,000 plus in order to get water up there. There are some houses there that do have water issues, especially on Northwind, boron contamination. In terms of the question about who benefits, beyond that, in the agreement itself, the ability for people to connect is limited to new development. And new development is characterized as new construction or subdivision, which effectively makes it developers who are going to benefit from that. As a sidebar with regards to the residents up in the Winds, as a result of kind of the polling, if you want to call it that, and visiting those residents, even talking to residents that do have a severe boron problem, they recognize the limitations about the fact that it's not likely for water to actually get up there. So as a result of that, approximately 1 month ago, I sent a letter to Chief Bob at Nanoose First Nations. Nanoose First Nations has a water tank just to the north of Northwind. There's a water pipe that goes along in behind the residents, a number of which have boron. And I presented to Chief Bob the idea, on at least a temporary basis, of having those residents that are affected connect to the Nanoose First Nation system. That went to the band council approximately about a week ago. Their answer is, we'll talk more. So in terms of those people, there is the potential for water, but likelihood from Lantzville is more difficult.
Thank you. Would either one of you two like to respond to that question?
You know, it's fascinating. We have 1,550 folios in the community. In other words, there are 1,550 tax-paying entities. Of that quantity, about 200 or 300 are vacant lots. They're distributed along Lower Lantzville, Upper Lantzville. Some are huge, and those will be major development. If you add up the numbers, we have 950 on the water system. We've negotiated with Nanaimo for 221 to be specific, as a cutover to the Nanaimo system. That will free up 225 connections to our system on our current system. I'll leave it to your imagination where that service could go. There are homes in Lower Lantzville that are not on the water system. There are some vacant lots without development in Lower Lantzville that cannot connect. And I expect that that water will be used up without any major development over the next 5 or 10 years, no matter what happens outside the domain of the additional 50 for development that we negotiated. So I think these are two separate issues. As to the Winds area, I think this is a decision that the Winds area will have to make. We could not leave them out in the negotiations. I question the numbers here, we'll see. But certainly that, you know, whatever the cost is, that will be up to the Winds area, and the vote will have to take place there. And that was one of the reasons why I thought it was inappropriate to go to a referendum for $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, and then not give them the opportunity to vote if they wanted water or not. So that's my response on it.
Thank you. Oh, Jim, do you want to weigh in?
No, just very quickly, and I won't go into a lot of detail like my two friends have. We really don't know what those costs are at this point. There could be some additional funding available somewhere along the lines. We just don't know that. So over the next few months, we're going to try and develop something. Personally, I think as a community, we had an obligation to go and look at what the problems were there. And they're going to get a vote on it. It's not as if we're going to just do it without consulting with them. That will go to a local service area vote with the information that we can give them to make an informed decision.
Great. Thanks. All right. Was there some... Oh, you have a question?
I have a question. Jim Dickinson, I live in Lower Lantzville. I'm trying to get a little read on it.
Who are you directing your question to? Anyone specific?
All three of them.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm
a blanket question.
I'm kind of confused on this water deal that we signed with Nanaimo, and it's gone, so it's done. But we don't know what the costs are. We don't know where the water's going. We don't know who it's going to affect, but it's going to help everybody. What are we going to pay? We go to do something. We'd like to find out what it's going to cost us to get from point A to point B, and is it going to be a cost in the future? What are those costs? Do we have any control over them? I hear people saying that this is our water, we own it, we deal with it. What I'm hearing from Nanaimo is, we will tell you what you're paying, you will participate in these deals, and we'll tell you what you're paying later. After you put in your shopping cart, after you put in your card, you've gone home, the store is going to send you a bill. And they might send you a bill next year.
We get the gist of the question.
Thank you.
Let's put it onto the floor.
In fairness, I don't think that's a 2-minute answer from either of the candidates. That's a,
Tell them to take 3. I'm curious.
you know, it's a very difficult and complex question.
You know what? I think it's the elephant in the room. I think everybody, you want us to put up hands? Who wants to know the answer to that question? Are you going, all right, that's the elephant in the room. Sorry, they're putting you on the hot seat, so is it all right, we'll just run along? You want to do hot seat?
Well, to be fair, I think I should answer that because I was part of the council that signed that agreement. We send out widely, information that was very informative. And so when I hear that question, it's a valid question, but have you read the papers that we send out as a community?
Yes.
The cost, let me finish. The cost per connection, if and when that comes about, will be roughly $6,000 per connection paid to Nanaimo. We expect to recover that cost from those people that do not have service now and want to have that service. So there is a net recovery of the actual expenditures. More important, and this is the interesting fact, we have a guaranteed supply, but we don't need to take the option if we don't want to. We have a 20-year window. So if the next council decides they don't want this service, it's up to that council. I fail to see why they would want to not move ahead, but it's up to them. The cost on the water bill, the Nanaimo has requested that we charge the same as they do on a per liter or on a meter basis. And we are roughly in the same order of magnitude. So I don't see any major changes with that. So I'm somewhat surprised that you even posed the question. Thank you.
Again, just very quickly, Jack's right. Lantzville is not required to pay anything until we use it. And just maybe in addition to what Jack said regarding the water that we do use, we're going to be buying it at the bulk rate and we'll be charging it out at